Hi everybody, welcome to day 1 of week 2 of our unit Engaging with Our Community. All throughout this unit we are doing activities to help us build to a final project. In week 2 we're going to learn about the Baldizzi family who came to the US from Italy, and their problems didn't stop after they immigrated to the US. Teachers, before we begin, let's do an overview of exactly what the day will look like. So we'll start with an opening do now activity. Then there will be a before reading activity. In this before reading, students, you're going to group words together that you think match and connect, and then use them in a sentence. Then we'll have our into the text moment. Teachers, please note here that there is some additional instructions in the notes for teachers on how to implement the into the text. Then we'll have an after the reading activity, and finally a closing and connecting activity. Teachers, note also that this video is going to facilitate the after the reading activity and the closing and connecting. Also, don't forget that just like always, you'll have below your notes for teachers on some of the slides to give you additional tips and suggestions for how to implement this lesson. So let's go ahead and get started with today. So again, we are on day 1 of week 2 with Engaging with Our Community, learning about the Baldizzi's family story of coming to the United States. Our essential question for the week is, how can where we live affect our health? We have a text to read today called Leaving Home. At this point, can somebody please read our lesson objectives here in the pink box? Teachers, you can pause this video and give students some time to read these lesson objectives out loud. Thank you for reading our lesson objectives. Our first is to express ideas clearly with peers, building on the ideas of others. Our second objective is to summarize key ideas and details in a text. So our 2 objectives today are sharing with our peers and helping each other develop our ideas. And the second is to take key details information from a text and write a response to it. Teachers, at this point, you can pause the video and facilitate your opening do now, as well as your before reading activities. Remember for the before reading to set the purpose with students and review academic vocabulary. You can also do the into the text moment with them, and remember again, you have your discussion questions here. When this video picks back up, we will begin the after the reading activity. So go ahead, pause, and do the first part of the lesson. Okay, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Baldizzi family and found their story interesting. Let's go ahead and start with our after the reading. So all throughout the unit, we are connecting the stories that we learn about to our New York City community health profiles. What we're going to do today is look again at the profiles, read part of the document, and then have some discussion and write a response to what we learned. So let's go ahead and start. If we click the link here, it will take us to a website with all of the community health profiles. You're going to choose the community health profile for your school. Let's choose, for example, the school I teach in is in East Harlem. Open that up. We are going to be looking at the text starting on page 5. So you'll go to page 5. I'm going to zoom in to make it a little easier to see. And the part of the text that we're looking at is going to start right at the top. The ability to live a long and healthy life is not equally available to all New Yorkers. A baby born to a family that lives in the Upper East Side will live 11 years longer than a baby born to a family in Brownsville. This inequity is unacceptable. Let's return to our lesson and think more about this statement. We have here that exact quote from the text. Let's go into our discussion. First, I'll reread so we get a second chance to hear that information. The ability to live a long and healthy life is not equally available to all New Yorkers. A baby born to a family that lives in the Upper East Side, an affluent or wealthier and richer neighborhood, will live 11 years longer than a baby born to a family in Brownsville, an impoverished, lower income, or poorer neighborhood. This inequity is unacceptable. In the first part of our discussion, we're going to restate this selection in our own words. And if you get stuck with this response, you can use the sentence starter. I think it means that. I'm going to go ahead and show you an example of how we could restate what we learned. I think it means that there is inequality in the health of New Yorkers. In the second part of the discussion, we're going to reflect on whether this statement surprises us and explain why or why not we're surprised. So here's an example of that response. This does not surprise me because there is inequality in how people are treated in New York and in the world. So let's pause right now. Teachers, you can give students some time to do steps 1 and 2 here of the discussion. Thank you for engaging in that discussion. We're going to move now to writing our response. When we write a response, we have a few sentence starters to help us get our thinking started. Let's do the first one together. The document implies. We're going to talk about what this document is telling us. Here's an example of how you could respond with this prompt. This document implies that New Yorkers' access to good health is not equal. So given that example, you'll take some time right now, students, and teachers, you can pause the video. You'll write out your response using the sentence starter, the document implies. Thank you for starting your response. Let's move on to our next sentence starter. I think that. So we're going to write about what this makes us think. Here's an example for this prompt. I think that this is because of unequal and unfair treatment. So at this moment, pause the video again and continue your response with the prompt, I think that. Let's do our third and final. This reminds me of, so we'll make connections back to something else we've learned or something that we already know. Here's an example. This reminds me of issues of discrimination against some of New York's communities. So teachers, for a last time, pause the video and give students some time to continue and finish their writing responses. Thank you for writing your responses, and that concludes the after the reading activity. We'll go into one last activity together, which is doing the extend the learning from our closing and connecting. We're going to open up a website with some statistics about our school community, and we're going to think about 2 questions. We're going to look for information on the population density of our community, and density means how many people are in one space. Is it very crowded, or are people able to spread out more? We're also going to look for information about what % of residents identify as limited English proficiency, which means that maybe their first languages were not English, they're still learning English, and English is not their dominant language. Let me show you exactly how we can do this. So this is a link to a website where you're going to find your community, your school's community in New York City. You're going to use this search bar right here. Let's stick with East Harlem, my school's community, and it should automatically fill this in for you. Okay? So I'm going to select the first one with East Harlem, and it brings you to this page of statistics. I'll show you where to find the 2 statistics that we were focusing on. First, we were looking for population density, and then also for limited English proficiency. Population density is going to be right here in this corner, and here is the statistic you're looking for. So in East Harlem, it is 50,213 persons per square mile. What I'm actually going to do right now is take that statistic, I'm copying it, or you could retype it. I'm going to put it here in a Google Doc. This is me taking notes to use in later lessons. In my pace like this, maybe I'll just have to format it a little bit to look clear. And then I'm going to look for our second statistic, which is about limited English proficiency. You're going to find that below here in these graphics, right here. So limited English proficiency, I see that that's 20% of residents of East Harlem identify as having limited English proficiency. So I'm going to add that here to my document. I might make this easier to read, choose one font size, write the date that I'm doing the activity, and I might give it a title like East Harlem Statistics for Health, because our focus for this week is about health. Okay? And if I really wanted to, I might make the font a little bit nicer to read. Okay, so at this moment, we can pause this video and you can do the Extend the Learning activity for your own school community. See you next week.